And welcome back to It's Only Money with financial advisor Scott Brown with EdgewaterFamilyWealth.com. If you need to get a hold of Scott, that number is 407-648-1881. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning. How are you?
Dude, so good. It has been just the most uneventful week all week long.
There's nothing going on. The world events are calm. Nobody's upset. There's no threat of tyranny in the world anymore. Or am I wrong about that, Tammy?
No, absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
I haven't watched the
even,
news.
What we need to talk about is that shirt you're wearing.
This floral concoction that I got going on.
I mean, I feel like this is obviously an audio, not a visual medium, but I feel like people can hear that shirt.
It's a very loud shirt. For the listening audience, if I had to describe this shirt, I would call it like bad, cheap motel painting. Like if you go into like a cheaper hotel out in the Keys. Like they have, it's not chairs that are like.
It's not motel. It's not hotel. It's motel. It's totally the one-story Art Deco, but without being refurbished. Like it's still bad from the 70s.
Oh yeah, but it's an ironically bad shirt.
It is ironic.
I am wearing it ironically. Is what I tell myself. I just look. There's a reason why no one's come to me to do a fashion advice show.
Right. Gotcha. Likewise, my friend. So anyway, the world is in a bit of upheaval, all kidding aside, but we'll see how that all plays out. But the markets, for their part, at least today, seem to be at least somewhat calmed, if not perfect. I think we're seeing that there may be a resolution to be had in this conflict that may not end with a mushroom cloud. So that's a positive result. But no, I mean, this is a show about money. And one of the things I did note this morning, I was reading, this is the 8th decline of more than 10% in the last 20 years. So it's funny, people think, ooh, this is bad, this doesn't feel right. But the truth of the matter is, in the last 20 years, this is the 8th time the market has corrected more than 10%. And in fact, we were down as of Friday, I think, about 11.5%. Which, again, in the big scheme of things, historically, not that big of a deal. It's not uncommon. It happens obviously 8 times in 20 years. So not our first rodeo with this, Ryan.
Yeah, and because I've been trained on meme stocks and just always, like, the big thing when you go online is like, and I never know if they're serious or not. It's probably a bunch of trolls, but they're always like, buy the dip, buy the dip. So I'm watching a ruble go down to 1 cent, right? And I'm like, how do I buy rubles?
Tammy, how do we get him? First of all, rubles. Like when I hear the word ruble, I think of the Flintstones. Like that's Barney the currency ruble. They had. I think.
Yeah, it's not real money.
Am I right? Is that not what the Flintstones spent when they went to the store? Rubles?
No, they spent shells. I think
it might have been the same thing. I think it's the same thing.
Oh, right.
but when I read stuff like Dogecoin is worth more than a ruble right now, like a funny joke, crypto is worth more than actual Russian currency. That's insane to me. And what I do is I go, well, it's gonna go back up probably. But nothing I buy goes up ever. So I know. Basically, if you want financial advice from this side of the room, just do the opposite of what I do.
Well, we could start the Ryan Holmes Contrarian Fund, and we'll have people follow you around and see what you invest in, and then we'll do the opposite. We'll take the other side of that trade every time.
Yeah, can we do that?
100%.
Okay,
yeah, we can totally do that.
We'll put that on. We'll put on Instagram or a website, and you can follow my bad financial advice by doing the opposite and see how people do.
Well, you and I were talking. Speaking of financial advice, you and I were talking earlier about time.
Yes,
and the value of time, and how, at least in my mind, what I've seen is people don't really understand the value of time, the value of their own time or other people's time. And, I know a guy who shops for a car for 2 months, and his goal is to win, right? Like you're going to win at the car dealership. So he'll spend 2 months moving around town, going to every car dealership in town, pitting them against each other, negotiating, walking out, holding his breath, standing in the corner, pretending like he's leaving. He does this over and over and over again. Now, I'm not saying that like you shouldn't enjoy that for sport, and I know some people do like the sport of negotiation for some strange reason. But in this case, if you think about this guy, and this guy, he does well. He probably makes, I'm going to guess he makes $50, $60 an hour. And when you think about the 40 or 50 hours between that and the Consumer Digests and reading everything he can get his hands on, and again, the negotiation, the time he had to go down to the 7th dealership, he probably spent $3,000 worth of time to save $1,000. So my point is not that people shouldn't negotiate. My point is not that saving $1,000 isn't a big deal. But if you're spending your time, the value of your time, and you're not getting equal value in return in the form of the reduction in cost, I think a lot, whether that could happen at your house, right? You're a new homeowner, right?
Yes.
So do you work on your own plumbing?
No.
Why?
Because I've seen my mom do it. And
you make your mom work on your plumbing?
No, not. She doesn't go to mine. I remember a dishwasher situation in a flooded kitchen when I was like 8, and then after that, my mom's advice was always never work on anything with water or electricity.
Oh, at the same time,
especially at the same time.
Yeah, that'd be very, very bad. Yeah, so like when I was a new homeowner a million years ago, I bought an old house, which I still live in, by the way, and things were falling apart, and I try to fix them, and I'm like, no, honey, I got this. Give me the hammer and the crescent wrench. I don't know how those two things go together, but that's what I had. So whatever needed fixing got fixed with a hammer or a crescent wrench, which is really weird.
Better than screwdriver and duct tape.
Yes. So inevitably, I would do this, and I'd spend 3 days on it, aggravated, cracked knuckles, the whole 9 yards, and then at the end, my wife would go, can I call the plumber now? And the answer was always yes. So I spent hundreds, if not thousands of dollars of my time and aggravation only to end up paying the plumber in the end. So what people, I think, don't understand a lot about wealthy people is how much they value their own time. And people say, well, why do wealthy people disproportionately use like financial advisors, guys that do what Tammy and I do? And like, why would they waste that money on an advisor? And the answer is their time. Because if they own a plumbing company or an electrical company or a widget making company or construction firm, whatever it is, they know that their time is better spent and more efficiently spent in their own business. This goes back to I don't make people rich, right? They're busy getting rich. They can subcontract out to me or to Tammy and I, picking stocks, trading stocks, looking at the tax implications, doing the paperwork, dealing with the trust document, talking about succession planning, philanthropic, whatever it is, they're farming that out to us because their time is way more valuable to them than the whatever a little bit of money they save by not paying us, right? So, and then somebody might say, somebody will say to me, well, Scott, I do it in my free time. All right, that's cool. I get it if you really like whatever it is, whether it's plumbing or financial planning.
Like a hobby.
Almost.
Yeah.
But to me, my free time with my friends and family is literally worth twice as much money as my work time. Whatever I'm getting paid for that hour I worked, times it by 2, and that's the value of my free time at the beach, on my motorcycle, or doing whatever it is I enjoy to do. So the essence of this conversation that you and I were having goes back to how much do you value your time and what are you willing to pay to preserve it?
Welcome to the biggest problem of my domestic life right now, which is so moved in with a new fiance. It's our house together, and there's a couple bills that I'm willing to have because of time. Then one of them is we got a landscaping company. It's not the most expensive thing in the world. It's like $90, I think, is what we pay. And we split that bill 45-45. But she's like, why do we have this? We could just get a lawnmower and rakes and all this kind of stuff and just do that. And my logic is that is my mental energy being drained, and that's my time that I have. And I'd rather just outsource that because my time, you can't buy time.
Right.
So I do that, but then she'll see me sitting on the couch watching Netflix, and she's like, oh, this is what you're doing with your time? And I'm like, I need inspiration for comedy. I have to know about the current things and you don't know when my brain's going to find gold for something. So yeah, this counts as that as well. And that does not go over well all the time, but it's hard to explain. But there's stuff like I got a pool guy because I don't want to ruin my pool. I know that I could learn from a YouTube video and do it and spend the time and constantly go to the store, but there's a good chance I'll ruin one of the biggest aspects of the house.
For sure.
You know, so I have a guy that comes in and does, and that was a conversation. And she had actually never thought about life like that. Being time is not something you can purchase.
Right.
You know, everybody has their limited amount, and you get that much, and that's it. We don't know how much that is. So why spend it doing the things that you don't, A, want to do or just would drain you as a person? So I totally believe in that. But then the other problem with that is defining that line is hard for me, because I'll do that, but then I'll spend like $1,000 on Uber Eats. And that's just straight up
But again,
laziness.
life is a series of trade-offs, and you have to understand where you clearly know where your value is and understanding the value of your time. And some things you can spend your time on, and some things you can spend your money on. And really determining where that value is for you is an individual thing, but certainly something to consider.
Well, spend your time right here on It's Only Money. We will be right back. And welcome back to It's Only Money with financial advisor Scott Brown with Edgewater Family Wealth. You can get a hold of Scott at 407-648-1881. And we're talking about sweet, sweet time, the thing that all of us have in spades until we don't.
Yeah, it's in short supply. I mean, as the older I get, the less of it I seem to have. So
And it moves faster.
Yeah, and as we were talking about in the last segment, the value of time, and how you use your money to get more money. How you use maybe you don't have a lot of wealth, but what little wealth you have may be in the form of time right now. It may be in the form of your physical ability to do something. But at some point, to accumulate real wealth, time has to, as the song says, be on your side, right? So if you use your time wisely, if you say, look, I've got this $1,000. I've got this $1,000 in my pocket. Now I could buy something with it. I could invest it. I could have something fixed at the house. There are lots of things I could do with it. But the way entrepreneurs, like the Shark Tank people think of it, I've heard it explained this way is, I think Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary, right? He likes to say, I like to send my money out like little soldiers to bring back more money. So if you think about investing that way, and you're patient and you allow time to do its thing, you know, somebody once famously said it's the eighth wonder of the world, and that's compound interest, right? So if you put $1,000 into an investment and allow it to either accumulate through growth in the stock market or dividends, or invest in another business. Maybe you invest in a business. Maybe you take your $1,000 and you invest that in gas so you can drive Uber in your spare time. So now you're investing your time, your energy, and your money into building wealth. So there's so many ways to spin this, but what I find with most people, Ryan, is that they have kind of a scarcity mentality. Like they think to themselves, I have this money, I need to hoard it, I need to continue to look for a way to spend more wisely rather than to accumulate more wisely. And I'm here to tell you the world's abundant. If you approach the world as abundant, it kind of plays out that way for you. But if you're constantly worried about what am I spending on this and that, and I'll tell you how I know this is because, and this is a touchy subject, I suppose, but oftentimes people who inherit money or get money through winnings like the lottery, they almost never keep it. And the reason for that is they view it as scarce. This thing they got, they don't know how it was accumulated, they don't know how it was earned, and then they just want to hang on to it. And what I find with those people is they want to spend the least on help. They don't want to spend money on anything because, again, how did they get this money? Well, basically it was given to them. Versus an entrepreneur who earns money or builds wealth or accumulates wealth, they know how the money was made, and they know if the money goes away or if they spend some of it, they're going to find a way to get it back. They know how to do that. They don't have a scarcity mentality. So that's why you see people, 30 to 40% of the people who win the lottery go bankrupt because they buy stuff instead of sending, as Mr. Wonderful would say, sending their soldiers out into the world to accumulate more.
So basically that's what you do as a job. I mean, you're sending people's money out as the soldiers to bring it back when they don't have to really do anything.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I hate war analogies because I think it diminishes what war really is. So I'm trying to stay away from that.
We don't talk about war.
But yeah, exactly. But I will say that sometimes you send your money out and some of it doesn't come back, and then you think, well, I'm never doing that again. But the reality is, if you think about, and I'm trying to get my clients to think of themselves as an entity like a private equity firm or venture capital firm or an endowment like Harvard or Yale, and think about how they do things. And if you think about a private equity company, you think of your portfolio like they do, they'll buy 10 companies or 15 companies. They know 5 or 6 of these companies are going out of business. They know that for a fact. Statistically, if a private equity company invests in a company, another company, a smaller venture, they know 5 or 6 of those ventures are just going to go away. They know 4 or 5 of them are just going to be okay, maybe lose a little money, and they know 2 or 3 of them are going to be what we call a 10Xer or a 20Xer or a 100Xer, where they make all their money on 2 or 3 of those deals. Now, I'm not in any way, shape, or form suggesting that's how people should invest their money, but I'm kind of exaggerating the point to say when you buy 10 stocks, you got to know 2 of them are going to be stinkers, 3 or 4 of them are going to be okay but pay you a dividend, and maybe 2 or 3 of them are going to be your big players. And if you approach your portfolio that way, understanding you're not going to win all the battles, I think you'll be fine in the long term.
Well, you're totally making sense. I mean, even though we do this show, and I've never thought about it like your job is to think about money all day long so other people don't have to. It's essentially like I'm not thinking about my yard, I'm not thinking about my pool, but I am thinking about my money, but in the wrong way. Like in the way of I'm just letting it sit there. Now I have all these ideas when I watch the news, and this news will be like, oh, this hot thing right now, you want to invest? And then I'm like, maybe I should do that, but also I'm an idiot. So maybe I shouldn't do that. So to get somebody but like you, who literally your job, and you've been doing this for 30 years,
35 years,
35 years.
Yep.
You wouldn't have a job if you were bad at it, and you didn't.
Well, and it's again, it's not, to me, it's not good or bad. It's people have these absolute views of things. Is that investment good or is that investment bad? That's a binary way to look at investing. Really, anything in the world. If you look at anything in a binary, either good or bad, you're starting out in the wrong place. Are annuities bad? Like if you ask some people, should you buy an annuity, you'll get strong reactions one way or the other. Oh no, annuities are terrible. They're the worst things I've ever seen in my life. And then some people, largely insurance salesmen, will tell you that annuities are great, right? The truth of the matter is they're neither. They're just a tool, like a hammer, right? A hammer is great for pounding a nail, ain't so great for washing windows. So if you look at everything as having a binary or an absolute good or bad, you're not going to go anywhere. And the same is true of the advisory business. The same is true of investing. Buying stocks is neither good nor bad. It's just a tool to help you accumulate wealth. Sometimes that tool works great. Sometimes it doesn't work so great. But over time, getting back to our theme, it typically works out pretty well for most people who are disciplined and stick to a process.
This is the most ethereal conversation I've ever had about money, because you're essentially like, yeah, what is a thing? What is anything? Is anything good or bad? So
we're having an existential conversation.
Yeah, it's existential now. And like, what is time? I like this. This is what I like about this show, Scott. It's not like here's this here's an annuity. Let me define it for you and do that. So
Mick Jagger told us time was on our side. So I mean, I don't think you need to go any further than that.
Yeah, but how do you? I mean, I guess where is the line though? Like where what you're spending. Because I could make the argument, although incorrectly, that like when I go out to eat all the time, I'm saving myself from all that cooking and that mess, and then I clean up. But I know that I can't file that under the same thing as the pool guy. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, you can. I mean, you can't obviously outsource everything when you're a young man. You're on the way, I think, to probably building a young family at some point. And we all have to make sacrifices with our physical being. When I started out as a young man, I poured concrete in the summer when I was going to college, right?
Oh, that's fun.
I was that person that I was working for was paying me to do something that wasn't well served for him. I was able to trade my back and my arms and my strength, my youth, for some money that I needed. I didn't have any other way to accumulate wealth because I didn't have any capital to start with. The person who hired me had some capital, right? And the person who hired him, who was the home builder, didn't want to go out and be the contractor and certainly didn't want to be digging footers like I was in the hot Florida sun. So the point is we all have trade-offs to make. But when you reach a certain point, and I would argue, people who are starting to build some wealth, maybe they're worth $50,000 or $100,000 or $200,000. At that stage, you find yourself with the ability to let your soldiers go do the work and to take those thoughtful risks, if you will, to help you take the wealth that you have and make it more without you having to go out and mow the lawn or having to trade your physical labor for something. So for you, if you say, well, I like to go out to eat because I don't want to wash the dishes and I don't want to clean the counter, and in my case, my wife hates the mess I make when I cook. She would much rather go out to eat. To keep the harmony and peace in my house, I do that. But the other thing I would say for you is you have to decide. And if you're able to make that trade-off, but somewhere else you make up for it, maybe you do mow the lawn. I'm not suggesting you mow the lawn, so I don't want your fiance to get excited. But maybe there are other things you do to kind of offset that until you get to the point where you can do all of it. But you will never get to that point until you learn to let your existing wealth go out and help you create more.
Interesting. Well, speaking of time, and we're coming up to the end of the segment, but I want to talk to you a little bit about vacations and like what's proper for that. How do you save for vacation? How do you make money on vacation? Why do Americans not take vacations at all? Like, I literally haven't had a vacation in 2 weeks. That would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But like 2 years, because I think we're built on that. Like, in this culture, we never slow down.
Well, we like to brag about that, right? Like,
we do brag about it.
I haven't taken a vacation ever.
I just bragged about it.
You did. You did. And that's something we're conditioned to do. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but that's the American way. And we can certainly talk about vacations when we come back.
We'll be right back with Scott Brown with Edgewater Family Wealth. If you need to get a hold of Scott, that number again is 407-648-1. And welcome back to It's Only Money. I hope you're having a lovely Sunday. I hope, maybe you're on vacation right now, hanging out, listening to us. And that's how you spend your free time.
The soothing sounds of investment knowledge.
Oh, yes, absolutely. You don't know how people relax.
I've just started a whole network, didn't I?
Yeah, you might. Maybe you could do. Have you heard of ASMR?
No.
So ASMR is this thing that has taken over the internet at one point, and it's basically just people that they'll crumple paper into a microphone, or they'll talk real softly like this. Yeah. And there's a certain sect of people that activate something in their brain. It doesn't happen for everybody, and they just find it super soothing, super relaxing. So you could start, financial ASMR.
I could lean closely to the microphone and talk about stocks and bonds. Like that?
Yeah. So
that's just creepy.
Yeah, you're right. You know what? Cancel that idea.
It's like Barry White reading stock reports.
Yes.
Yeah.
That might actually work out really well. Yeah. You had APR's up. No, okay. I'm not going to do a Barry White impression.
It actually doesn't work.
Nope, does not work at all.
So you were talking about vacation. It's funny you brought up vacations because there's been a statistic out there for years. I don't know where it came from or if it's even right, but it sounds right. So I'm going to say it. It's that the average American spends more time planning for their vacation than they do for retirement in an average year.
1,000% in my book. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You're on whatever.com, Travelocity, whatever, Priceline. You're looking at the hotel, what pool. My daughter last night wants to go get in a cage with sharks in Key West for some strange reason, and she'll spend hours looking at that, talking about that. I promise you she hasn't thought 1 second about retirement. But my point is that probably shouldn't be true for the average American. And when you were talking about bragging about the time we do or don't take off, and again, that's American culture, I suppose, although I think that might be changing for your generation. Am I wrong about that?
The youth are not having it. I'll tell you that right now. Whatever's going on with Gen Z, they're going to be an interesting group of people to watch.
Yeah, I think there's a practicality to work, as I've said on this show in its short life already way too many times. I think work gives you purpose and meaning. I think we're built to work. I think human beings are built to work. We're built to survive, really, to fight animals and pick fruit and hide in caves and find water and things like that. So I don't think sitting around staring at your phone all day is good for your mental health, and I think the statistics are bearing that out for this generation. But the reality is maybe there's a balance, as they like to say, to be had between work and play. And, if you want to be wealthy, though, I would argue that maybe you have to really go when you're young, when you're energetic and you're physically able to get by on less sleep and do more work so that you can maybe when you get to be my age into your mid to late 50s, then maybe you can slow, although I haven't, but you could theoretically slow down. I enjoy work, so that's part of the problem. But you could theoretically slow down. So I think, again, I don't know how the younger generation views it. I think right now they view it as kind of this 50-50 proposition. I don't know that that's right for young people. I think maybe they'll find that it doesn't feel as good as they think it will. But I don't also think that the I never take a vacation for 5 years thing is something we should be bragging about.
Yeah, there's got to be a balance for sure. For me, doing nothing is one of the most boring things in the world. Like I have friends that are like, I just want to get to the point where I just got nothing to do. And I'm like, how? What would happen to your brain
you don't
right
want
then?
That. Yeah.
Your brain would literally atrophy if you weren't constantly like working or learning or doing something like that. But yes, also not doing any vacation. Terrible plan. Just mental health wise has got to be. So when you say people spend more time planning for a vacation, I know how to do that, right? Like I know what the websites to go to. Is there something I should be doing daily, monthly, like yearly to just think about retirement and that kind of thing?
Well, I think I tell clients that they should set aside, for my clients, it's twice a year. I like to see them. And I like to make them stop moving for a second and sit down and write down, and it's not done in a vacuum. If you're 35 and you're planning for retirement, I promise you whatever you write down today as your goals, dreams, hopes, fears, they're going to change. You're going to get 6 months down there and go, well, that was stupid. I'm not doing that. and then you're going to do that 20 times between now and the time you actually do retire. But if you don't start going through the process, if you don't build a base of understanding, I have people in their late 50s come in and say, all right, well, I think I want to retire. And I say, well, what kind of budget do you have? And they've never done a budget. They don't know what they spend on a monthly basis. They don't know what they spend on food. They don't know what they spend on gas. They don't know what they spend on electricity. Basic sustenance. They don't know. And I'm not saying they're bad people, but I am saying it makes it hard to plan for retirement if you say, look, let's make up a number. My wife and I are My husband and I make $83,420 a year. And I say, well, how much of that do you need in retirement? And they go, I don't know. Well, then I don't know how much money you need in a bucket to produce that money, right? We have to work backwards off of what do you need, A, and B, what do you want? Because those are typically two different things, right? Sustenance and enjoyment are not the same number. So we know you need $63,420 to pay the bills. We know you'd like $83,000 because that allows you to go to Europe once a year, buy an RV or whatever it is. So just a big, because Tammy, you said it earlier, if you don't have a target, what do you aim at, right? You're just meandering through life hoping to stumble into a successful retirement, which generally does not work, Ryan.
That's very interesting. So I just never realized this, but there's not a cookie cutter answer for everybody then.
No, and that's the problem, is people think there is. They think, well, what do you do? Or what does everybody do? Well, everybody's not you. Everybody has different needs. Some people enjoy doing a jigsaw puzzle for weeks at a time. Mm-hmm. Some people want to go hang gliding in the Alps. Those are two different numbers, my friend. So understanding who you are, because that person who wants to do the jigsaw puzzle, which, by the way, I like a good jigsaw puzzle.
Nothing wrong with the jigsaw.
But that person doesn't need, on average, the amount of income doesn't need 100% of their income in retirement, like maybe the person who wants to do the paragliding in the Swiss Alps once or twice a year. So it's an individual thing. It's not one size fits all. And not only is it not one size fits all, but the size you're wearing today will not be the size you need to wear in terms of financial planning or in income 6 months from now or a year from now.
You got to get in shape financially.
That's right. It's the post-Thanksgiving change, you know? You got to get your stretchy pants out sometimes.
Is a version of financial advice for your clients, like because you're talking about the Swiss Alps people and the hang gliding, it's like, look, you're going to need to be more boring as a person.
Sometimes. Because, a lot of times we'll do the planning for somebody, and they say, well, I have this much in a bucket in my 401k, deferred comp, in the savings, whatever, and I save this much, and I'm going to retire in 4 years, and I need this. When that number doesn't work, when I say statistically it's unlikely you'll get there, their instincts are, oh, well, Scott, you need to make the stock market do better. Mm-hmm. That's not one of the options on the table, right? For me to, and the stock market might do fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. It might.
You don't have a back number you can call?
Well, I do, but I only use it for really, really nice people.
Always be nice.
That's right. Always be. It's critical to be nice to me.
I imagine that, because people, it's their money. It's like sort of the most important thing to Americans, and they just come in and Scott, this stock didn't do well, and this is your fault.
Yes. Well, it's when it's down, it's my fault. When it goes up, they did it. But that's a whole nother. That's something for me and my therapist. But where I was going with that is your options are not make the stock market do better in that example where the person doesn't save enough or doesn't have enough accumulated. Their options are many: save more, work an extra year or two, reduce how many times you want to go to Europe, or buy a smaller RV. You have options. But if let's say we're having this conversation and you're 50 and you're going to retire in 15 years, and I tell you, look, man, you either got to save more or do these things. Well, you got 15 years to kind of correct course, right? But if you're 64 and a half and are going to retire in 6 months, your options dwindle at that point. What you can do to correct course if the course is not correct to begin with.
Is going to you a lot like when people go to the dentist and the dentist asks if you've been flossing, and then they're like, yeah, totally. But you as the dentist know that they have not.
No. I can still see your peanut butter sandwich from last week. That is not good.
That's got to be super sobering for a lot of people.
Well, what's funny is I don't know if I like the dentist comparison. But
yeah, you're right. It's like a fun dentist.
Really fun dentist. What I find is a lot of times people come in and they're apprehensive. They're part of the reason they don't go to financial advisors is they don't want to hear it. Mm-hmm. So the people that tend to wander into my office are never as bad off as they think they are, because the discipline and intestinal fortitude, the thoughtfulness that goes into walking into an advisor's office and saying, hey, can you help me out? Can you show me the humility that requires to say, I'm not sure I'm doing this right. Can you help me? More often than not, those people are way better off than they thought they were. Which I find they often sigh a big sigh of relief at the end of those meetings.
So, yeah, it's still like going to a doctor. Like, I don't go to doctors because I'm like, he's going to tell me everything is wrong. And then I leave there and I just feel so much better when I'm not, because I will Google WebMD everything.
Well, that's all you got to do.
Yeah.
Whenever I go to my doctor, I'm like, hey, doctor, Google says.
Exactly. Well, if you want to meander into Scott's office and find out that you're, a little bit better than you thought, go to edgewaterfamilywealth.com or give him a call at 407-648-1881. We'll be right back. And welcome back to It's Only Money with financial advisor Scott Brown with edgewaterfamilywealth.com. Scott, you had a brilliant idea.
I did?
And I like this.
Did you write it down?
I did write it down. I write a lot down during this show, and then I save it all later. But you said you wanted to take questions from people about their finances and things like that, and basically doing my job where I just ask you a bunch of silly questions all at once.
You're not the only one with silly questions.
Yeah, thank you. That's good to know. But you can email Scott at edgewaterfamilywealth@raymondjames.com, and we'll read those questions on the air, and then you can get yourself a little free financial advice under the radar.
That's right. You get what you pay for, though.
And then you're spending your time doing something else other than thinking about money. So that's good. But speaking of time, it seems like we're at a really unique point in history from my perception. I mean, we got the Ukraine thing going on. The market's all over the place. This is definitely the first time this has happened, correct?
Yeah. Oh. So, Tammy's here, and a lot of people don't know that Tammy is of Russian descent. So we have an expert in the room, the Russian rocket, as we like to call him.
Oh, yeah. All over the place.
But, Tammy, to that point, how many times has this been an issue in that part of the world?
I can't even count how many times. But just to be specific, when you see in the past 50, 60 years, when we had, before Russia, the Soviet Union, we had incidents like this, like when we had invasion of Hungary or Czechoslovakia or now Ukraine, and even if you want to go a little bit more east, when the Soviets got into Afghanistan. It's not the first time, definitely not the last time. But what's interesting enough is when you look at the stock market and you see the reaction.
Right.
And how did that happen? And we're talking back then when the threat was much bigger.
Sure.
Well, we had the whole bloc in the east. We had the massive Warsaw Pact against NATO head-to-head.
And the market collapsed and fell apart and never came back, right?
Yeah, never came back.
Yeah, remember
never
that?
Came back. Yeah.
I don't remember that.
That didn't happen.
Oh.
Yeah, that never happened, actually. There's a little bit of market scare, but then it quickly goes up again. And interestingly enough, I mean, when we look at when did it start? Thursday?
Thursday, yeah.
Thursday, yeah.
Yep.
So we look at Thursday, and we looked at actually market went up 2% since Thursday.
Since Thursday.
Yeah.
The Putin put.
The put and put.
Yeah, but what's going up? What's it all? Defense stuff and
Well, there is some. I mean, defense is going up, yeah, but the best performing one is materials, followed by financials. So we're looking at almost 4% in materials up.
I mean, if you're selling F-35s, you are in the right business right now. But it seems like it's lifted a lot of boats here when we realize that maybe this, short of mushroom clouds, that this may pass. And again, I don't mean to diminish the loss of life or property that's occurring in the Ukraine right now. I think it's abysmal. But at least domestically, the markets don't seem to be overreacting to this.
No, not at all. We discussed that in last episode.
Yeah, in the last segment, we talked about, I think, 4 or 5 stocks, not the least of which were Microsoft, Apple, Netflix, I'm forgetting 1 or 2. Amazon, and they are all up 1 or 2% on average since we last were on the air. So, again, these represent buying opportunities, and if you get all worried about finding the bottom, you likely won't find a bottom because you'll wait for it to bounce, and then it'll go up 5, 6, 7%, and then you'll decide now's the right time to buy when you should have bought it maybe weeks ago. Not the bottom, but certainly a price that was cheaper. And we were we've talked in the past a little bit about the slow accumulation of wealth.
Yeah.
And one of the things...
Yes, Scott, your boring way of doing it correctly.
Go get a drink or take a nap or go mow the lawn. I don't care at this point. But
the one that will actually work, but just, takes time.
I know. Nobody likes that. Everybody likes the short. Everybody likes the diet pill. Nobody likes the treadmill.
Yep.
I get it. But the reality is that when you look at... I just saw a statistic from, I think it was from Fidelity, and 365,000 people in this country now have more than $1 million in their 401k. So think about that. I've talked about 401ks before here, and again, another boring topic. But when you think about where most people accumulate their wealth, there's 2 places: their home and their 401ks. So you can ignore one of them at your own peril, but oftentimes people will say to me in 401k meetings, I don't do them as much anymore as I used to, but invariably, there'd be somebody in there annoyed with me because of my crappy 401k, and they'd say, well, I'm not putting money in this plan. And they sound just like that, by the way.
Yeah, that's a good impression.
Yeah, here.
I know that guy.
They do sound like that, I'm sorry to say. But the fees are too high, and the returns suck. Okay, well, is that really the problem, or is it that you just don't want to save, right? Because whenever I look at that, it's always a guy in his mid-50s. He's got his arms crossed. He's ticked off. He's got $5,000 in the plan. Now look, if you're 55 and you've only saved $5,000 for retirement, fees and returns are not your problem.
Yeah.
Because I could do it for free, which I won't, by the way, and I could double your money. Guess what? You still can't retire, right? Because what that guy's really mad at is his inability to have been disciplined 30 years ago or 20 years ago or 15 years. And by the way, there's a lady sitting next to him who's one of these 365,000 people knitting a sweater and not looking at me at all. And she's got $1 million in the same crappy plan. So what she understood early on was that if she put the money away, didn't pay a lot of attention to it. I'm not saying don't pay any attention, but I am saying minimal attention so that you don't get in your own way. Time, going back to our original theme, will indeed be on your side. Now, the good news is the average balance in 401ks right now throughout the country is about $120,000. Now, remember, that's an average. And that means there's a bunch of people with $1 million and a bunch of people with $2,000. Now, I am not diminishing $2,000. If you're in your 20s or even your 30s and you're just starting out, it's a great way to get going.
Oh, good. Okay.
It's all it's all good. I'm not diminishing it, but you don't want to be that guy in the front row with his arms crossed who's ticked off at me because he's only got $5,000 saved. Because let's be honest, that's what he's really mad about.
Well, that's also scary. I mean, like as somebody who doesn't have kids right now, you know, like a lot of people are like, oh, I'll grow old and my kids will take care of me. Mm-hmm. You know, and that might not happen for me. Or I know a lot of people out there, that's their life. I mean, this might be a very stupid question, but what happens to people that don't save for retirement?
Well, I mean, we have Social Security, and I know people like to say, oh, it's not going to be around when I get there. It's going to be fine. Stop it. Because you don't, like I say, you don't want to be the Congress person in the villages when the checks stop coming, because that won't end well for you. Mm. They will come find you in their golf carts, I promise. So Social Security will be there. Some people have pensions, although pensions have more or less gone the way of the dodo bird. What it was replaced with was the defined contribution plans, which were 401ks and the 403bs in the not-for-profit world. So you have to contribute to those things to get where you're going, unless you're an entrepreneur, right? If you're an entrepreneur and you have your own business and you're going to sell that business someday, or you're accumulating wealth that way. But at the end of the day, anybody can do it. I'm telling you, people say, everybody can't. Everybody can do this. It's just a matter of will they. And it's the same issue between, you know, having that fruit cup for dinner and a box of Oreos. It's a discipline issue. We all like the financial version of Oreos, which is the lottery, gambling, a hot stock tip from we'll pick on dentists again, from your dentist. You know, those are the Oreos of financial planning. And if you eat an entire box of them, you're going to get a stomachache. And you certainly aren't going to look the way you want to look. The same is true of investing. If you're looking for a shortcut, I always tell my kids, the easy way is not ever, 100% of the time, never the right way. And if it sounds easy, it probably isn't. And it probably isn't correct.
Oh,
I know.
Well, you just ruined
even
my
your
day.
shirt is sad right now.
It does change colors with my mood. It is hard, and I see why people find it to be, you know, a daunting scenario.
It's not. It's not daunting. The only daunting part is getting started. And I find with people, they'll say things like, "Well, Scott, I'm gonna save, but I want to wait till I can save $500 a month." Mm-hmm. Now I can only save $50, and then 3 years go by and they've saved nothing because they didn't get to that magical $500. Meanwhile, they could have put $5,000 away, $50 at a time, right? And then the $5,000, you know, because if you have $1,000 and you make 10%, you make $100, right? That's not going to change your life. But if you accumulate $100,000 and you make 10%, that's $10,000, right? So at some point, the eighth wonder of the world, being compound interest, starts to work for you. Your soldiers start to accumulate, and then they go out and accumulate more soldiers. So it sounds daunting because it's not easy, but the reality is it is easy. It just requires effort.
So is there anybody that does it perfectly? Like they come in your office and they're like, "Yep, that's my thing." You're like, "You're good." Is there always room for improvement?
Well, the answer is yes. There are people who do it well, and people that walk in and I'm like, "This is great. I mean, you've done a great job." I very often will say to a new client or an existing client, "You've done the hard part. You've been disciplined. You've been responsible." Because I'm fond of saying to people, the amount of return you need to get is a direct correlation to the amount of responsibility and discipline you've shown in the past, right? Because if you come in and you say, "Hey, man, I need $50,000 a year in income when I retire," and you have $1 million, well, that's 5%. But if you have $200,000, that's a considerably larger amount of money. That's 25%. I have to earn you 25% because you weren't responsible, and which, by the way, 25% ain't happening. So again, there are people who do it well. Does that mean they don't have maintenance and ongoing issues? Of course not. We need to continue to be smart, as smart as we were before, if not smarter when we get into retirement.
Well, all excellent advice. I actually had talked to somebody over the weekend, Victoria, who works with you. She's been your client for many, many years, and she was just singing your praises left and right.
And she's a good singer.
She is. And so people like working with you, and she's like, yeah, he tells it how it is. And that's definitely very useful. But if you want to work with Scott, all you got to do is very simple. You just go to edgewaterfamilywealth.com or call 407-648-1881 to talk to Scott Brown or the newly dubbed Russian Rocket.
That's not new. He's been the Russian Rocket.
Oh, well, Tammy's the Russian Rocket as well. So you already got a radio name, Tammy? You're crushing it left and right. Well, check us out next time. And like I said, edgewaterfamilywealth.com. Scott, great to see you.
Likewise.
Yeah, and clearly people are rich, right? Or wealthy. You don't have to be rich. I like the term wealthy better. I mean, to rich reminds me of like the Monopoly guy or something. But, you know, there are regular people.
Now that guy I trust. You don't see the problem, Scott? You don't have a monocle.
Monocle is, now, if you can meet a guy with a monocle, I mean, like, I'm all in.
What was his financial advice? He said buy Park Place?
Where is that?
Where is that? I can't find it.
Tune in to It's Only Money with Scott Brown from Edgewater Family Wealth, Sunday mornings at 7 on Real Radio 104.1. Raymond James Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Edgewater Family Wealth is not a broker-dealer, is independent of RJFS.